There are various types of parenting. There's over-parenting, which is really, this will only cause them to be, your kids to be underdeveloped. I think there's this sense that we'll over-parent, and so we're going to protect them from everything. And when you do that, you're not really helping them develop into the culture that they're going to be in, and then you throw them out there and they're not ready because you were really overprotective. Then there's underprotective parents that really have no engagement. You expose them to everything with little to no conversation about what they're seeing, hearing, or experiencing, and they're exposed before they're ready to adjust or adapt to it, and it affects their life. And then there's just protective parents. This is, I think, an amazing thing to me. They're not your children. They're not your kids. They're his kids. He entrusted them to you to be stewards in their life. You're to steward your children. First thing you have to recognize is they're not your children, they're his. And you have to accept the fact that he has a desire for those kids more than you do. He loves those kids more than you do, Mama. Isn't that good to know? And that his heart is for them more than you, and you really are just coming into agreement with his will for your children. So it's important to understand that God is God. And I think a lot of times we assume they're ours, and so I'm going to do it my way. And you really need to stop and say, God, how do you want me to raise these children? One of the verses we're doing is Joshua 24:15. It says, "But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you," And this is the part. It says, "Then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve." You better choose who you're going to serve, because you're going to serve somebody. What Joshua is saying, either serve the Lord or serve the gods from over that you had before the Euphrates, or the Amorite gods, but choose somebody, because you're going to choose who it is you're going to serve, because you're going to serve somebody. Right? And I think our kids are going to serve something, and we have to help them make that decision to serve the Lord. Joshua says, "But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." Why? Because we know he created us, and he loves us, and he cares for us. Then in Jeremiah 6:16, it says, "This is what the Lord says, stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths." Ask for the ancient paths, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you're going to find rest for your soul and for your family. And how many want some rest in your house? Right? Because there's a lot of disruptions that can happen and things that can take place. So what we did was this last week, and over a number of weeks, we sat down with some teenagers, and we asked them, what are some of the conversations that you're having in your high schools? And it's interesting because I had there were people that called in and said, "Pastor, is this going to be like a rated R message?" And it's amazing to me that we could sit and watch Netflix and watch stuff happening on the screen and then have a problem if we're talking about it on a Sunday morning. I mean, how insane is that? How deceived is that? That we have a problem. We have no problem watching sex on TV, but if you bring up sex in church, oh my, right? It's something we need to talk about, because it's something our kids are talking about, whether you like it or not. And you may think you got them under a rock and they're not getting anything, but I'm telling you, they're getting something. If they're around anybody outside, it's like the pandemic. We're trying to protect them from anybody getting the pandemic, and we're going to lock them in a house. Well, they're talking to somebody that's got it, and it's coming out somewhere, and you're going to hear a little bit about that. So we ask questions. And we don't want you to feel hopeless when we're done. So we're bringing up some of the things kids are talking about in the school, what's going on in the school, so that you can have conversations with your kids. You're aware of what's going on in the school, and you can have those conversations with your kids and your teenagers, and then you can have those discussions. And we kind of want to talk about, because you're not going to protect them from that world and that culture, the culture that we're in, but what you can do is equip them to deal with it when they walk through it. How many think that's probably a good idea, right? And so who we have today, you all know Mackenzie on the end, who's your children's pastor here at Farmington, and then Pastor Alan. That's live. Pastor Anthony there, and he's your youth pastor here. And then we have two people that are friends of ours. They're incredible leaders in our district. They are the pastors of our youth pastors. They were youth pastors for a number of years, very successful in Cold Spring, Minnesota, at a very strong church there. And Des is actually, her dad was the pastor there, and Kirby's dad was one of my pastors, Pastor St. John, and so they have had a lot of experience, and they got teenagers. And so we sat down, we had a 3-hour conversation, and we're going to try to do that in 20 minutes. Okay, so you ready to go? And we're going to talk about some of that. What are the conversations children and youth are having among their friends? And I'm going to open it up. Who would like to start with the thing that really is where that is at?
Yeah, well, first thing that we're going to discuss here is gender conformity, and one of the things that we're seeing with that with our kids is, which yes, our kids, meaning like elementary kids, they're going into their schools and their teachers are telling them that they can decide who they want to be, and that's a decision. You wouldn't let your third grader decide if they want to drive to school today or if they're going to use the stove and make pasta, right? But that's something that they're being told is that my body, my choice. We actually had a kid come in one Sunday and say that in service because they think that they can make that decision. Something that I saw at Target the other day, there's this book called Bye Bye Binary, and it's a board book. And on the picture, on the front is a picture of a baby, and it talks, and on the side it says this, it says, nobody puts a baby in a pink or blue corner. And so I think even as just our young babies, they're being taught that they can choose whatever they want to be. They can be whoever they want to be. Today they can be a boy, tomorrow they can be a girl. And whatever that is, that's just who they are. And so they can tell their teacher that, and their teacher will call them that. Yeah, so that's something that we're seeing in our kids. And it's important as parents that we are celebrating who they are. You know, when they're born a girl or a boy, like we're celebrating that. Like, it's okay that you like to play with trucks and you're a girl. Like, that's totally fine. You are a beautiful little girl, and we're gonna celebrate that till the day you die. Like, that's something that we as parents can do in our homes.
Going off of that as well is our second one that we're going to be going over.
No, let's stay on this for a little bit, yeah.
I just want to take just a second here. My kids, they've been sitting in class, and here's what their teacher says. You don't have to listen to a thing your parents say or believe. You make a decision for yourself. That's what they're being taught at school. And I don't care what your parents believe. You choose what you want to believe. They're throwing out what they're being taught at home. That's that's kind of a comment that a couple of my kids have heard in school. And then there's this whole other piece of like once you're trying to fit in and connect and somebody may be struggling in a certain area trying to figure out who they are. Students nowadays, there's groups of students that it's like they're taking kids in, and like the teacher is saying this, but the kids are saying, listen, if your parents don't believe this, if your parents don't believe this way, then you should disown your parents and move out of your parents' house and come live in an environment where they're going to be more open to the lifestyle that you want to live. And I've seen that happen in a couple of different instances as a youth pastor where they're just saying, hey, man, it doesn't really matter. Your parents, they can have their view, but this isn't what society really is about. This is what life is really about. You go ahead and live all you want. If they're not going to tell you what you want to hear, they are really good at grabbing hold of students and bring them into their circle. And anybody that doesn't believe what they believe is in the wrong. Push them away. Don't associate with them. And then you live how you want to live. And so it's a pretty dangerous kind of position we're in right now.
Well, and it kind of makes it almost as a sense that this is an abuse situation, like you're being abused. So this is actually happening where there are people that are saying, if your parents won't agree with this, then you come live with us and we'll give you an environment. Boy, it's awfully heavy over there today.
As he's fixing that mic, we had a kid going into preschool screening. And as they went into preschool screening, they said, parents, we want you to leave the room. And some of our friends told us this happened to their kid. And they said that they sat down the 3 or 4-year-old kid, and they said, what are you today? Are you a boy or are you a girl?
Yeah.
There's a 3 and 4 year old. That's the questions they're asking our kids, and that's kind of what they're facing and going through. And the girl came out and told her parents, this is what they asked me, you know. Luckily enough, she was, and they, you know, anyway.
It's also something that they brought up. If you come out as being something that you weren't born as, they're also championing that and celebrating you. And what kids don't want to be celebrated, right? Especially if you feel like you're being rejected. So if you come up, they make a big deal about it and kind of treat you that way. What's the second thing that they had brought up?
Yeah, so the second point that we're going to be going over is sexuality. And just being a youth pastor here, like I can even tell you I know I'm just in youth and young adults right now, but they're teaching this kind of stuff to our kids, like all the way through kindergarten. Like even when it comes to gender formality, like conformity, like all the way up even to just sexuality itself. I mean, we've had conversations with students that were telling us how they were bragging about how they had sex with someone when they're in middle school, like 6th and 7th graders. Like this is just things that we haven't really seen. It's like unprecedented in our culture. And I even found this stat too from Barna that says over 90% of students are struggling with pornography. This is like just teenagers in general. And through this, like it's something
that's men and girls.
Yeah, that's guys and
boys
girls.
And girls, yeah.
It's something that has just literally permeated throughout all of culture. It's become a norm, and so much so that it's like actually kind of unpopular. That we found from conversations with students, like unpopular to like not be watching porn if you're in high school or in middle school, guys and girls as well. It's and the biggest thing that we're finding from these kind of crazy, evil things that have been going on inside our students is through our phones, through everything that you can see on your phone, because it's so easily accessible through major social media platforms. Parents, like, listen here. Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff, and I'm being honest, it should have an age restriction to it. Like, to be honest, like some of the things that you can see just through the algorithms that are shown through their systems, kids don't even need to watch porn anymore. They can literally just go on Instagram, on TikTok, all these kind of stuff, and see disturbing things, like incredibly disturbing things. And it's important to recognize these things, even as a youth pastor, to students and parents, because this is a society that we're growing up in right now, and it's becoming more and more popular as well.
I'll just say this, and here's what we're finding out is it's not just public school kids. So some of you think if I homeschool my kid's not going to have the problem. No, homeschool kids have the same issues. As I travel around the state and speak at different youth groups, run camps, do different things, it's every kid, every demographic, every kid is having the same issues that are brought to their attention. So just another thing to think about.
And I think as well, too, is when we even look inside of this, we see teachers that have came forward also talking to us and saying that although they're teaching at such a young age as well, as teachers are kind of not technically encouraging some of these actions, but through gender conformity and all this kind of stuff, they're introducing a mindset to them to be open-minded about their sexuality, which then gets introduced. It's kind of like that gateway drug. It kind of gets introduced in different ways, shapes, or form through their peers inside of schools. And the thing is, too, is like through all of this, like what we've said already, is that there is hope. There's things called like BROCK.com that kind of like goes through like surfaces like webs and all that kind of things that like your students may be going through. And this may seem like a lot to just kind of handle all at once, but for real, like it is so important to be able to monitor these kind of things, because it is literally ruining the mindset of a young person as they grow older in like gender conformity, but as well as sexuality as well.
So the Bark app, it monitors the apps of your kids. So if you have a kid, Pastor Stephen Richfield brought up something too. He recommends that parents buy their kids flip phones. And I said, so, yeah, and if your teenager is saying no, you should buy them one. If they said no, and I saw one teenager go no, you should buy them one, because literally, like, another thing we talk about at the end is, would you put your kid to bed with a Playboy? No. But that's what the phone is, except it's every possible magazine made that's there. And you let your kid take their phone to bed, Well, I need an alarm. They make a lot of alarm clocks still that you can put in the room as an alarm. But do you really think that's the reason your kid needs their phone in their room? Come on, parents, let's be smarter than that. One thing I didn't mention, remember, parents, when you were kids and why you didn't interact with your parents? Do you remember? Do you think it changed? Think back to when you were a kid. Do you really think it's any different? We all think our kids are different than the rest of the kids. You might discover that they're not so different, that you still need to monitor. What's another thing that...
Another thing we talk about that kids are just having conversation about, or they're seeing or experiencing is just the whole mental health battle. I was talking to a guy up in a small town, northern Minnesota, 2,000 people. They said they've had 4 kids commit suicide this year. And with the pandemic, with all of the stuff that's gone on, all of the pressures of academics, trying to learn that online, all the different things that add to it, all the bullying that happens. I mean, it's not just happening in person, it's happening over social media, it's happening over group chats, it's happening. I just had a kid that we just found out about this week that was being bullied by kids at his school, and they said, what I really would love to do is just to shoot you and watch you bleed out. As a 6th grader, that's what the group chat was about. And then all these other parents have hopped on there saying, that's happening at my school too, that's happening at my school too. And so you wonder, when we look at the state of mental health with our students, with our kids, the battles that are going on, the things that are happening in their mind, the pressures that they feel they're facing. Because, well, one, they're facing the pressures of all the sexuality stuff. All of that is adding on to the mental health thing. Somebody said 80% of people say when they look in the mirror that they don't like what they see. That's just the physical piece. 80%. Wow. You add on the mental piece, all the pressures that are going on. It's out of control. Talking to youth pastors all over the state, the number one thing they're dealing with is mental health with students. And so to have that conversation, to know that kids are seeing that, their friends are seeing that, and if we don't, as parents or grandparents or somebody, have that conversation with our students of how just to check in and see how things are going with them or with their friends, we're missing the boat.
You want me to move on?
Sure.
Okay. Well, another thing that we had talked about when we met was just the use of drugs and alcohol, which has always been around. I mean, when I was in high school, that was a big thing. But I think it's happening more and more at a younger age, and it's more normalized. And parents are now not fighting the battle, but joining them. Even my kids just in the last couple of weeks went to a grad party, and not only were all the kids drinking, but their parents were drinking with them. Coaches were there. I mean, it just was like okay with everybody. And I just think that parents aren't fighting that battle anymore. Instead, they're just becoming their kid's friend and their party buddy. And my son was sitting next to this girl in his class in 3 different classes and would have conversations with her for 3 hours a day. And one day she just said, Keaton, my dad walked in my room while I was doing drugs and he didn't even say anything. Like, he saw me and he didn't even care. He didn't take it away. And he came home and told us about it and was like, I feel like she was sad. Like, she didn't think it was cool. I think she felt sad that her dad didn't care enough to say, this isn't good for you, and you shouldn't be doing this. And I don't know, do you want me to share?
So going off that, and I want you to share more about the drug use, but in your mind, I want you to think of a percentage of the number of students in school, in high school, what percentage of students have either done or are doing drugs? Get a percentage. What do you think that number is currently, right now? Got a number in your head? You got a number in your head? Here's the number that it is, 85%. Did that blow the number away in your head a little bit? It's become that normalized because because of a party culture, do you know your kids want to be accepted, and they feel in order to be accepted, they have to join in with the group, and then they're part of it, and the peer pressure is incredible. The peer pressure to tell them, what would your kids do to be accepted in school? What things would they just adjust to be accepted? Go ahead.
I think as well, like just piggybacking off what Des said and what Pastor James said as well, is we kind of talked about it, but what the parents kind of introduce to the culture of the student is what they're going to do as well. Well, if my parents do something, then yeah, that's okay. It's like at the party culture too. These are happening at parents' houses, and they're like, the parents are the ones like letting kids come in their doors and like taking their keys, right? Come, have fun. I just want your keys so that you don't leave like drunk, or you don't leave like high on cocaine or all that kind of stuff. Listen, we've had conversations with students as well, where even at Farmington, where like kids like have been dealing with like even cocaine, like some like harder drugs, like at the time, like these students are going through so much, and they're using some of these harder drugs as well. Like, these are things that you, as parents, might not even understand or realize that a kid could get a hold of something like this. But like Pastor James said, 85% of drug use is like going through these high schools right now. These kids are doing these kinds of things, and it's something that is 100% dealing with the idea of peer pressure. Of if you don't do this, you are going to miss out. That FOMO aspect, like, is real for some of these students when they go to these parties, because if I don't fit in, then they're going to be dealing with the mental health kind of crisis. I might be depressed. I might have anxiety, all these kind of things. It is becoming a pandemic for our students that drug use is becoming such a more popular thing. And it's time for us parents and students to kind of put our foot down in this reality and say, no, we can't have this. This isn't biblical. This isn't what God wants to do in my life, and it is going to ruin their lives as they get older as well.
We were at a tournament with one of my kids, and all the girls got together and said, if we score X amount of goals today, will all you parents agree to not drink tonight? And when they scored that last goal, everyone on the team looked up in the stands and pointed at the parents and said, you're not drinking tonight. But I think that the kids are not seeing their parents having fun without it, so eventually they think to have fun, they need it.
And what we're finding, some of the students said, where are they getting the drugs? And there are students from this campus even said in the hallway and in the stairway and in the bathroom. And they're doing drugs in the bathroom in the high schools. And it's just incredible. You're thinking with a paradigm that's no longer relevant to where it was at when we were there. Does that make sense? What's another thing that came up?
Yeah, so the next thing is bragging about a lack of integrity. This may be something that isn't very common from our standpoint, just as parents or students and stuff like that, but it is becoming very commonplace for students to like brag about cheating in middle school, high school, all this kind of stuff. And it kind of takes form as they get to college, because the dropout rates are incredibly high right now from students going throughout high school. But even when they get into college, they go, man, I kind of cheated, went my way all the way through high school. Now look at what I have to deal with, right? And even in that, there's stories of like stealing as well, like all these things of just having a lack of integrity. We've had a conversation with students just on their sports team where they said that he would walk in with like a $1,000 coat or something and be like, where'd you get that coat? You go, oh, I just stole it, you know? And people are just like, oh, that's so cool. Or like, it's becoming something that is becoming so common as well. Like the kids just have this mentality of having a lack of integrity, but more importantly on top of that is that they're bragging about these kind of things as well.
I'll just add to that, just in that whole integrity piece, with that, it's just, I think we're finding a lack of commitment. It's like a commitment to everything in life. And one, because it's a lack of commitment to studying. It's which caused them to have to cheat. It's a lack of commitment to, I think we've experienced that in our culture. Our parents haven't had commitment maybe with each other or with what they're going through. And then it filters through. Then they get to a sports team that they're just not going the way they want to be. And it's just this whole idea of like, man, I can just commit to one thing. If there's something better that comes up, right? I'm going to go do that and leave my friends doing their, I was supposed to hang out with these people and these friends, and all of a sudden something better comes up, so I just leave them. There's this whole process and this whole cycle of just this lack of commitment when it comes to, I was talking to a business owner, and here, just this goes back to the stealing piece. He goes, I would rather hire an adult that's 30 years old and pay them $4 or $5 more an hour than hire a high school student. And I said, why is that? He goes, because when a high school student's working for me, when their friends come in, they give them whatever they want for free, and I lose more money than paying the person $4, $5, $6 more an hour. That's not going to allow that to happen. And that's just the culture. That's just the kind of the feel of what's going on in today's world.
And the conversation they're having. What's the sixth thing? There's all kinds of things we could talk about. What's the...
Yeah, something that we're seeing a lot with our kids is, it's pretty normal now for an elementary kid to have a cell phone of some type. And something that we see a lot of is that they're losing their ability to interact with other people. It's normal to sit down with, we heard a story from a high school student. He sat down with another student and he just pulled up his phone and started scrolling while they were talking. And so there's this need for when someone is uncomfortable and they're in a situation where they don't know anyone else, their immediate thing is, I want to hide from all of it and just pull up my phone and scroll on that. And so one of the scenarios that I've actually experienced, we've had, for the past couple months, we've had a group of kids come to my house on Mondays. And one Monday night, a kid brought their cell phone, and I mean, that's normal. And he pulls it out and starts playing a game on it, and the other kids are playing Uno and some other games, and all of a sudden they notice that there's a phone in the house and someone's using it. And slowly, me and Pastor Bailey start to notice that kids are starting to surround this one kid as he's playing this game on his phone, and it's almost like an opportunity for them to not have to interact with each other, but to just watch this kid play this game. And so it's crazy because it's just so much easier. And so kids are not learning now how to actually have those conversations with other kids. So. Yeah.
And where are they learning that? Parents, right? They're learning it from us, because that's what we do, right? We get home, everybody in the house has their phone out. We're eating supper together, have our phone out. We're watching TV, everybody's got their phone out, and then we just lack conversation. My kid's in a junior, going to be a junior high school as a sophomore. He said that when they give them free time at school, they'll go, hey, you got the next 35 minutes to work on whatever you want, do whatever you want. He said there's a lot of classes where there's not a word said for the next 35 minutes. Think back when you were in high school. If your teacher said you had 35 minutes to do whatever you want, it would be pandemonium, right? It would be crazy. But they said nowadays what's going on is these kids, they go, the moment the teacher says that, they boom, tablets are out, phones are out, and it's like just focused in here. And so we're lacking this ability to just have real conversation with students.
Yeah, literally, they brought up that there are times where they'll be texting the person next to them because they won't talk to them. Isn't that insane? So we wanted to talk about some functional habits. We want to talk about some functional habits that we can do to help equip them to do that. And there's some things that you can do to help, because we aren't going to change the culture and where everything's going, but we have to prepare our kids to be able to walk in it and to be a light in it and to adapt. And our goal is, well, I'll just hide them under a rock and protect them, and they'll never experience any of it, and that's not the answer either. We know that, one, we have to show them the light, who's Jesus Christ, and we got to teach them to walk in Christ and to do that spiritually. But there are also some things that we can do to help our children to become more equipped for that, and one of them would be, one of the big things, we ask kids, what would you want in a functional home? What's a functional home for you? And they gave us a list of things.
I think one thing is just creating a really safe place for them to be able to have conversation and to be able to hang out and be who they are. I know our daughter had a couple girls over at the house the other night, and after they left at 1 a.m, the next day they said, we just love hanging out at your house because your parents just sit on the couch and hang out with us and talk with us. And you would think that kids don't want the parents around, but really I think they do. I think they like that you're just open to listening to what they have to say and what they have to talk about, and that you're not going to overreact or think ill of them if they share something that you might not agree with, but just to hear them out and give them that safe spot.
What were some things that they said that kind of destroyed that safe place for them?
I would say, like, destroying that safe place for some of these students is when they would say, like, we've had conversations with kids where they say that, you know, their parents would laugh at them or even worse, make fun of them for what they may be going through and stuff like that. And they use it like against them almost. And it's something that causes the student with the parent relationship to just never trust them again. And so when they are going through things, they're going to put that wall up. They're going to put that other face on with their parents. They're not going to be able to go to them when these things are going on, and it becomes a big mistrust issue between the parent and the student.
I think that starts when they're super young. So your kid does something funny, you did something cute, and all of a sudden you have to tell somebody else, and they're a little bit embarrassed. And it just keeps building to now they start talking to you about something, and then that gets shared. Or you overreact when your teenager does something wrong and makes a mistake, and all of a sudden you blow up, and they're like, wow, that's not a safe place to have that conversation anymore. You know, they just got caught doing something, all of a sudden like, uh-oh, I can't go there. Now I'm going to talk to my friends or talk to someone else about what I'm struggling with because of how my parent or the person over me reacted. So just kind of creating some of those, that kind of just destroys that trust piece.
What were some things that would then build a safe place for them that they brought up?
Validating them and telling them like what's important to them, guiding them through the mistakes that they have going on, building relationships and also boundaries with them as well. Because I think what's important with these students is that they do want boundaries in their life. They want that protection. It's something that has become so like uncommon between parent and student in today's culture, but it's something that they desire more than anything is that idea of like, listen, I want boundaries. I want to be able to have these kind of conversations. I remember Des and Kirby talking to us about how that there was a girl that came in with you guys and you know, and you guys set those boundaries.
Let's have Des tell that story.
Awesome. Yeah, so there was a girl that we had move in with us. She found herself pregnant in high school, and we wanted to help her through these next 9 months. And so I remember her sitting down on the couch with us, and we went over all the rules, all the things that she shouldn't do while she's under our home, and the consequences if she broke those rules. And she began to sob, and we just hugged her and sat with her. And after she composed herself a little bit, she said, my whole life I've just wanted somebody to say no to me. I just want somebody to care enough to tell me that that's not good for me. And so I think, you know, her parents had said no to her. I do know that. But they didn't follow through with any consequences. She knew they didn't really care. If she broke them, nothing would happen. And so she just sat there and cried because she knew we were serious. We're going to follow through with our rules.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about kids coming over and at your house, coming to your home and creating a place where they wanted to be there.
Yeah, you know, I think that was such a key element. We would do, one, she mentioned we had 3 girls over just the other night, and they said, we just wish our parents would do that. Is creating this environment. When we left youth pastoring, the last, man, just about every night there'd be 20 to 30 kids at our house, not from church, from the community, that would just come over to our house. We would come home and there'd be 20 kids in our house. I'd walk in the house, they'd be eating my pizza, they'd be doing that. I would go downstairs, and I literally heard this a few times, like, who is this? And the guy said to him, he owns the house. I was like, oh. This is his place. But creating those spots that they felt they could walk into a safe environment that just says, hey, this is a place that I can come and have conversation and have somebody that's going to encourage me. I was just over at a church speaking to a youth group just 2-3 weeks ago, and I walked up to this girl, and I said, hey, man, just want to let you know, you're pretty amazing. God's got awesome things for you. I kind of just noticed how you interact with people, just trying to encourage her. And she looked at me with tears streaming down her face that she said, I wish someone else would tell me that. Just try to create some avenues, some places where, one, it's you with your kids, your grandkids, with somebody that's in your world that you can say, I'm just going to create a safe space where there can be some spots where we can have some of those conversations that's going to be encouraging.
What's the second thing?
Yeah, the second thing is just building that foundation that your kids can really stand strong on from a very young age. And something that your kids are going to hear a lot of when they go to school is, you know, we're going to do math and this is why we do it, right? I always heard, if you ever went to math, I said, am I ever going to use this? And they said, yes, you will. You'll want to measure a fence one day. And to this day, I've never needed to measure a fence, but they tell you the why. For the same thing, like, they'll tell you, I learned about evolution when I was in elementary school, and they told me the why of why evolution came and how it all happened. And mind you, I am a pastor's kid who was taught Genesis 1:1 for my entire life, and even still, that shook me. I didn't know the why behind Genesis 1:1. And then I came home and I said, Mom, I saw a documentary about all of this stuff and how the Big Bang happened and how all of this happened. And my mom was like, well, let me tell you why that's not true. Let me tell you the why behind Genesis 1:1. And so it's so important that at home when kids are asking, like, you know, why do we believe this? Why isn't this okay? Why isn't this okay? And at school they say it is, you know. We need to be backed up. We need to give them that why, because they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to get something else. They're going to ask why somewhere else.
It's okay when building, I mean, it's so important that we build a strong foundation. And it's okay to not have the answer. It's always okay to tell your kid, I'm not quite sure, but let me get back to you. And sometimes I think we feel like we just have to say, well, I don't know, like, or don't worry about it, or that's just the way it is. But let's just come to a spot where we're, as parents are just like, hey, let's talk about this again tomorrow night. Or let's bring this up again, and then you go do some research. Call somebody and say, hey, I don't have any idea what my kid's talking about. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why does the Bible say it's wrong to do this or be that? And to have some sort of backing to that. But then the second thing I think in building a foundation for your family is you have to live out what you're talking about rather than just kind of talk. I mean, so many people say one thing but don't ever live it out. And having that consistent thing of like, man, the reason as I was watching my parents grow and I was growing up, my dad was a pastor and he would talk about prayer from the pulpit, but I would come home to him praying. He would talk about loving people. I'd I'd come in a situation where he would bring people into his world that just needed someone to care about them. And so I think the church today is so out here. Like we come to church and we say, yeah, but then we go out and we live however we want. And our kids are they pick more of that up in the way that we live. They say, well, that's really not that important. Church really isn't that important. God's really not that important. I can talk this way because you talk that way. I can do this because that's the way you talk. And try to kind of build that foundation on just being consistent with who we are, what God's word says. That really helps build that foundation.
The fifth one was forgiveness.
Yes. So going into forgiveness, I think it's important that we recognize that the students do need a place where there is grace from the parents as well. I mean, obviously, students are going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And I remember growing up and making those mistakes and my parents correct me for that, which I am grateful for. Like, I am super, super grateful for those moments. But what's important is teaching them how to forgive. And it kind of piggybacks off perfectly off what we're talking about here, just even previously with it, is that consistency. And when we see how students can be dealing with these forgiving issues, these trust issues from their parents, it's because of that lack of consistency. And a lot of times we've been seeing as well is that these students are getting punished the students are getting punished to not go to church. You know, like, you're being punished, you can't go to church today. And the kids are like, what? Like, don't punish your kids and tell them that they can't go to church for that kind of stuff, right? We offer grace in other areas in our life and forgiveness in other areas in our life, but this is like obviously the place where you want them to be like twice a week at least, right? It's super important that we deal with it because it's also how we deal with offense as well, and how we deal with these things going forward in these students' lives is also important because it will be something that they go through in their relationships with their friends in high school as well as college, and when they have a spouse and kids as well.
I think also being vulnerable yourself and intentional with some teaching moments. I think it's so easy to have a situation arise between him and I, or with a relationship or a friendship, and we can solve it, but if I'm intentional with thinking, I want to be vulnerable with my kids and be like, guys, this just happened and this is what we did. And I think that we can have a lot of teaching moments with our kids and our students and the people of influence around us by just being vulnerable with them a little bit.
Yeah, would you stand? I'm going to let the panel step off and we have to move. But, you know, you can listen to all of these things and think, boy, that's sure overwhelming. The last thing they had said was structure, routine. We like routine. Kids actually want routine. You know, something with forgiveness they brought up too is you could forgive, but there's still consequences. And the wheel of consequence continues to turn. Yeah, you know what? You made a mistake, but here are the consequences. And I think as parents, we have to be parents. We have to be parents. We're not their friend. And one of the things we've heard, especially in homes where there's a divorce, a lot of parents are hesitant to impose things on their kids because they're afraid that kid's going to run to the other parent and want to hang out with them because that'll be the cue, and they won't want to spend time with them. I want to tell you that it may be that way in the beginning, but even the kids we had talked to said, but after a while, they'll come back to you because they want the boundaries, and they want the structure, and they want the safe place. Because that's ultimately what they want to know. They want safety. They want protection. And so there are decisions you got to make that your kids aren't going to like until they're 22 or 24. And because they're not having to go through the consequences that other kids are having to go through, they're going to say, thank you. I didn't understand then, but I understand now. Right? There are dating rules for our kids that you don't just get to go out with anyone. There are all kinds of structures we put in place, and we impose them. We keep consistent. Does that make sense? I'm going to say this helped a little bit in just raising. It's just a dent, you know, for a few. But how many know the Lord can help you with this, right? The Lord can help you with this. So just say this with me. Father, thank you. Thank you that I'm not alone, that you're going to walk with me through this. Give me hope, because you truly are the God of hope.